We usually think we make our own choices. We believe we are independent and that we think for ourselves, that we live as we want. But what if that's not entirely true? What if the most significant influence on your life isn't your decisions, but the pattern you expose yourself to daily? Welcome to the Sebcast, home of the #1 network for your life. Here we turn our beloved stories upside down, look at what history may have overlooked, and discover together how Jesus invites us into a bigger story right where we live, work, and play. What if you don't deliberately live in two, but are slowly formed to be divided? Paul writes something radical in Romans 12. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. Notice he doesn't talk about a prohibition. He talks about formation. He doesn't warn against one big wrong decision, but against a constant influence that slowly presses you into a mold like wet clay in a form. And it doesn't happen through rebellion. It occurs through repetition. Jesus tells a story that makes this flesh and blood. It's the parable of the seed in the soil. The seed is the same. The difference is not the message, it's the environment. In one piece of ground, the birds steal it. In another, worries choke it. In another, riches and desires suffocate it. Notice, the seed is not destroyed, it is taken over. And that's precisely how worldly patterns work. They don't reject your faith, they take it over. We live in a world of constant inputs. What you see, what you hear, what you compare, what you consume, and what you start to accept as normal. And without realizing it, your inner life begins to adapt. You start to think as the world thinks, measure as the world measures, react as the world reacts. Not because you leave God, but because God is no longer your primary reference point. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The world's pattern doesn't tear through your beliefs, but through your rhythms. What do you do first thing in the morning? What you see last at night? Who shapes your attention? What directs your emotions? And slowly, you start living two lives, one you believe in and one you practice. That's why Paul doesn't say, do more. He says, be transformed. Not by effort, but by renewing your mind. That's another word for reprogramming. Not a one-time revelation, but a new pattern. And this is where the #1 network for your life becomes critical again, because patterns are intricate to break alone. What feels normal, you rarely question alone. But in a network, something else happens. People help you see what you no longer notice. They name what you start to normalize. They ask questions that interrupt your pattern, not with judgment, but with wisdom. Because sustainable faith doesn't grow in isolation, it grows in a contrasting community. A community that lives differently, reacts differently, chooses differently. The question is not whether the world influences you, it does. The question is, who shapes you the most? Because you always live according to a pattern. The only choice is which one. And the life Jesus offers begins when you stop reacting to the world and start being deliberately newly formed. Come walk with us this year at South Ward. Don't isolate and go through another apathetic year. Before long, you'll start living completely without God. Maybe this year is your last chance before you fall completely off the edge. Come join and show up and protect your soul with us. Until tomorrow, take care.